welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings Here. It's good enough. Anyway, women's over there, yeah. Just because it came up in the comments, there just happened to be 3 women in a row in the comments, and 2 likey, 1 no likey. Yeah, it's just been one of those weeks communicating with women thing, and yeah, so it's part of the subject. And the rest will be, I suppose, a response video to some sort of shit, and that'll be it. Yeah, it's always something to talk about. Always is. You know, you could just make stuff up. So I got an I love you, which is nice. And then a thanks, Gary, for another great, thoughtful video. Okay. And the one in the middle, though, not too pleased somehow. The only thing humans have is maths, and yet nearly all the great mathematicians have had children, even Hawking. Well, I don't know if that's true at all, frankly. Do you have any statistics? I don't know. Frankly, a lot of scientists didn't have kids, but whatever. It's men's lack of impulse control. So, you know, I don't know. Again, I've made the obvious point that women have the uterus, so they have the higher obligation in terms of controlling the gate, so to speak, and the male's contribution is trivial and you know, doesn't require any resources at all. And you know, so it's clearly more important to protect the uterus than it is to create shields against the sperm, you could argue. You know, this is just a strategy argument. The strategy is, you know, you create defenses, you don't create offenses against the aggression. You know, build a moat around the castle. You don't build a moat around the whole town, kind of thing. I don't know how to, you know. Despite their math, philosophy, and in Mendham's illogical assertion that women are the problem, well, I'm just saying statistically, I think, you know, that side wins. I mean, sadly, I think there's more women impulsively and recklessly allowing themselves to become pregnant than there are men forcing women to have kids. Now, I'm saying there's plenty of places in the world where that's not true, but I'm just saying overall, what keeps this thing running at all is women, especially in the civilized countries. I don't think, you know, if it were up to men, there would be even fewer children. That got us all here. Well, I've never really talked about what got us here, but whatever. They want the credit and none of the blame, so I don't even know what that means. They want the credit. You know, I don't want any credit. You know, I'm not looking for any credit for anything. I'm just trying to understand the mechanisms involved, and I'm just as critical, certainly, of men telling women what role they're going to play and obliging them to be slaves. And I'm not for arranged marriages or extorting women into marriage, you know, creating a jobless country for them, and, you know, giving them no other opportunity than to be a domestic of some kind. I'm not for any of that stuff. I don't have any empathy with that. So again, just, you know, just being a little excessive here. And then she says ephilis. You know, this is, so you're going to make a generic statement about ephilism based on your fanatic feminism, apparently, which is bizarre. Avoid the consent argument. I don't, you know, saying that to me is just kind of bizarre when I'm all about consent and all about people making as informed and careful a decision as possible and all of that crap. You know, so I don't see where do you make that up from? In my opinion, because they're closet incels. So that I might be. I don't know what an incel is, frankly. I would never join a club called incel, so I don't know exactly what it is. But I've kind of had it with the whole idea of figuring out some way to live with women, in a sense, because they are, you know, generally speaking, just as men can be cliche. You know, the sports bullshit and the, you know, filthy and a lot of things that men are cliche that I wouldn't want to hang around either. So there's plenty of that to go around. And it just might be that most people just aren't, reasonable. I mean, I was going to say intelligent, but I mean, that's a tricky word, right? Because intelligence is measured based on how many capitals you can name, and not so much on whether you know it's a nice thing to poke somebody in the eye. They don't ask that on the question. Is it a good idea to poke somebody in the eye? And there's intellectuals who'll sit there and bring up Kant. Kant can't figure it out. So if Kant can't figure it out, I can't figure it out. They'll do some philosophy crap to somehow make it like, oh yeah, it's okay to poke somebody in the eye. So, I mean, intelligence is a dangerous thing, as they say, or as I just said. Because it's just used so badly and so incompletely and so selectively. That's it. People have selective intelligence. They're smart where it's to their advantage to be smart, and they're really dumb where it's to their advantage to be dumb. Pretty much, unfortunately. So even the people with intelligence aren't smart enough to know that hypocrisy is bullshit, and they should be called on it. And it's okay for you to call me on something, but I don't see where you're really calling me on anything here. I don't have a lack of empathy for the position women are in, especially in the third world. I think it's terrible that they're obligated to play roles, and I think women should have every equal opportunity to realize their ambitions. I will critique the ambitions because often women are trained to have silly ambitions. The ambition is to make everything pink and happy, and it's not really. And then it's often they're not grounded in any kind of hard knocks kind of view of reality. Where men, I suppose, might learn earlier in life how cruel the world is and how brutal it is and how it's going to beat the shit out of you. And so they're more in the game or more competitive and all of that kind of stuff. So they end up playing a better game because, a stronger game. I guess I won't say better. I'll just mean stronger, more aggressive. Where women just settle for the status quo. They'll take the, Apple Jacks without any crystals of sugar on it or something. I don't know what the the analogy is, but they'll fall into the role playing more. I can't say more. It's just a fact. The biology is different, and part of that leads to a real difference in perspective and ambitions and goals. And I have nothing good to say about male character when it comes to women, because I can't even say that I have any. I mean, the superficial part, the fact that we're object oriented, and women are to be used, as a device, for deriving a kind of pleasure, and that's about the extent of the usefulness, frankly, for a lot of men. And I'd have to say for me personally too, if I'm, most of the time, although I am sympathetic, I'm very grateful that women got the vote, because if it wasn't for them, we'd live in a shittier society. I mean, men would have elected somebody dumber than Donald Trump long ago if they controlled things, because they're into this whole he inherited it so he earned it thing. I mean, they don't care how somebody wins, they just love winners somehow. They're just so into doing that, holding your trophy up at at the ceremony thing. I don't know what it is, frankly. They're into being cruel buffoons and morons. The Homer Simpson scenario, whatever. The cliche male is just such a useless pile of shit, and I have nothing good to say about him. But there is a whole different, there is as much difference as there is between men and women. There is difference between an intelligent man and a dumb man. So you can find these categories to place us in and to have arguments about who's right and who's wrong and who's sensible and useful or productive. That it might be That might be a good word, because that's my standard, frankly. But anyway, so, I have to concede that, what, there's no common ground. I mean, I would, I'd like it if men came in women's, you could, just because it's like, I wish that women had a penis. Well, I sort of do, just because then they'd understand, and then there wouldn't be all this conflict about what our ambitions are and what we're after and what's motivating us. But they don't, and it's just a fact. And I would argue that it's a big difference. It's not, I mean, it's a little difference, but it's a big difference in terms of perspective and what you're living for. Because frankly, there really isn't anything to live for, I mean, from my perspective, the amount of time I've spent in my life trying to engineer a life for my penis is so much greater than the amount of time I spent worrying about my pancreas or my liver or any of the other parts getting into the future or having any fun. So, it's been a huge distraction, and it's, a big motivator. And clearly women aren't as motivated. They don't get it, lost in, the same sort of fantasies of, it's not even conquest, it's just adventure. They're not as adventure driven, you could say. And there's a part of me that's, like, I'm not a risk taker. I'm not a, go for it kind of, I'm a don't go for it kind of person. I vote against everything, oh, sorry. Tired. Long week. Anyway, well, long 2 weeks. So, whatever. It's always there's just this, like I said, this conflict thing between what women are after and what men are after, and I find it always gets in the way. It's always there, and it's always a problem in terms of, it's just, you can't win. But it's like I said, maybe it's like that with every relationship. I don't have men friend either. I don't have, I just don't, I'm just not a people person, frankly. And there's, like I said, there's much to empathize with women's position. But I just wish, I would argue that it's probably mostly women who, keep the world trivial and silly and happy because they're trying to do this comforting thing and this it's all right thing and blah, blah, blah. And they're trying to be helpful in this, Band-Aid kind of way. And I do see that as horribly unproductive because it just keeps regenerating this fake victory and, well, we have a clean kitchen floor. Well, that's really not good enough. You gotta have more than that. Life is more than that. And it does, I mean, that's a trivialization and it's a stereotype, but it's the, the mommy dearest scenario, just the stuff that just couldn't matters. And, that's just, to women's discredit. But again, whatever. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's probably enough. There's no can't please all the people all the time or whatever. There's nothing you could say apparently just to get to the root of the problem. And I guess some people think the root of the problem is just all ideology, like it's all some lack of respect thing or some other kind of thing, when it's more complicated in the sense that we do have a biology that is compelling, and it underlies everything else that takes place in a way. It poisons the well all over the place. But I would also argue it's, frankly, I mean, without it, Is there a point? I mean, it's almost like if you're going to make an artificial intelligence and you're going to make it asexual and, non-sexual, um, could it possibly be intelligent? Because it really doesn't know one of the most important motivators. And that's the problem with men and women, is just they're motivated by very different things, very different biological parts. But anyway, so we'll go find this other piece of shit video. So there's another one there. Some guy made a 3-hour video response. And it's just, I just haven't gotten around to watching it. But I mean, 3 hours. There's subjects we're talking about, but it's like he never gets to the subject. He just talks about them in all of this academic kind of, it's so abstract. It doesn't ever get to any conclusion because, it's all part of this nihilist nonsense that because I can't put feelings on the palm of my hand and show you one happening, that somehow it doesn't exist. When, in theory I could. I mean, I could tear apart a rat's brain and I could find just the pieces that make it feel like shit. So a shitty feeling rat, I could have all the little necessary bits that is shitty feeling. That is a certain arrangement of neurons, and it creates shitty feeling. And I could hold it up in my hand and say, see it right there, it's happening. And no matter how you can't reconfigure that configuration will always create that negative. And it's just always negative. It doesn't matter if I put it on Mars, I just hurl it into space. It doesn't matter where it is. It's always doing something bad. It's a bad feeling. It's in and of itself bad. And it doesn't need doesn't need any context. It's on its own screams exactly what it is, bad. But anyway, there's just no point. I mean, it's just the evasions are everywhere and they're extensive, and it just, it's a kind of a hopeless task, this communication thing. So anyway, this imbecile guy, imbecile, yeah, whatever, from like, I don't know, 5 years ago, apparently he had a kid. Well, I thought what he wrote here is quite funny. The decision to have kids and deal with all the suffering, and you deal with it how? By watching it? Yeah, it's a little easier to watch, and clearly people love watching suffering, right? I mean, they make all kinds of TV shows with all kinds, Freddy's Nightmares and the biggest, Friday the 13th, huge amount grossing films where people go to watch people be horribly brutalized and ruined, and then they watch cops and 9/11 shows. They watch people wheeling into emergency rooms. They all find it all fun. Yeah, so apparently the people like watching. So that's hardly, that's hardly something you have to deal with, right? Because that's apparently candy to a lot of people, is watching somebody suffer. All the suffering that it brings, known and unknown, predictable and unpredictable. Well, yeah, those are exactly the same thing. So you use 4 words to say the same thing. But anyway, 4 concepts. The whole point is that we can know. There's a definite risk. It's not like there's a debatable risk. There's definite risks. And if you take any of them seriously, frankly, what's your excuse for deciding for somebody else that you're going to impose that risk on them? Put that crappy ticket in their pocket. What the fuck is that? It requires courage. So it's like saying rape requires courage. I'm sure it requires a certain thing. You could call it. You got to be courageous, to to overcome reason and somehow fight through all the reasonable reasons you can understand why what you're doing is stealing. So I'm sure the first time a thief goes out and steals stuff, he's afraid and he has to have some courage, but it's not a good kind of courage. Let's see, daring the self-discipline. What the fuck that even means? Requires courage, daring the self-discipline, and not everybody has what it takes. Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point. Why would anybody want to have that? Want to have the ability to courageously impose on somebody else. I mean, it's not a nice thing. But anti-nihilists want to flatter themselves as superior to the rest of us. Well, whatever, you want to put yourself in that category, but yeah, I'm, you know, it's hardly for the purpose of flattery. I'm hardly doing it for the purpose of saying I'm better than you. I'm a more efficient human being. I have less of a blood footprint. I have, you know, blah, 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 blah. Go through the whole list of all the things I'm not that you are. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to persuade you. Now, obviously, you're not persuaded that there's some reason for you to pause and reflect on what exactly gave you the right to decide for some other feeling creature what it's going to feel. I mean, that's pretty bold assertion. You think you have a right to play God, Frankenstein, whatever. I don't think you do. Precisely because this courage and self-discipline is something they lack. So again, there's no evidence that this is a positive courage. So fine, I'll say I don't have the courage to impose. I'm not an imposer by nature. I wish not to impose. I wish to pay for what I do. I don't wish to make somebody else pay for it. I mean, you know, it's almost like saying the courage to go speeding down the highway, right? I mean, yeah, okay, it might take courage, but if you're doing it on a highway that has other cars on it, what kind of courage is that? You know, the courage to risk other people's safety and welfare? That's a negative thing, asshole. Want to commit, ask questions, and chat with other viewers. Oh yeah, it's always so interesting to chat. Join the channel's Discord server. Yeah, so they need a separate place to do the conversation. I mean, it's just amazing. This is such a bizarre circumstance, this whole Discord thing. Don't get it, sorry. Support the creation of new content on this channel. Oh, so look at that. Look, $1 per month. Oh, isn't that cute? Oh, anyway, you pathetic asshole. Anyway, so on to the video. I haven't played any of this, so who the fuck?
No, when I think of babies, happy gurgles and giggles don't come to my mind.
Yes, I don't, you know, I think of babies. That does come to mind, actually, and I don't really like that gurgling crap either. I don't like anything about a baby. There's not a single feature it has that I have any interest in at all. It's just their nightmares. I hate looking at them. I hate seeing one. I don't, you know, everything. It's like pregnancy. I just don't see anything beautiful, anything lovely, anything any charming in any way about it. I see it's disgusting. Ugh. So, I mean, I have an advantage where, yeah, I don't see anything nice in it at all.
Think more whiny, annoying, loud, stinky, smelly, waste of time, life ruiner.
So, if you go to the gambling house,
what the music is for, I really don't know. So this is another thing. These people, I just don't get it. You know, how does this enhance it in any way? You're supposed to be listening to it, right? It's supposed to be some sort of serious commentary, and yet he's, you know, gonna play like, you know, banjo on my knee, going to Alabama or something, coming around the mountain. You're gonna sing a song in the middle of the fucking goddamn video? I just don't get it.
alright, and you're going to play dice. And on the dice are skull and crossbones.
Well, it just seems there we're done, right? Fuck. Why am I rolling these dice again? For what? What is my interest? What do I get out of it? Some ego thrill or something? Why am I rolling these dice with somebody else's welfare? So I'm rolling dice that have skull and crossbones on it, and it's somebody else is going to get hit with a hammer, and I'm doing it for some stupid reason. Why am I rolling the dice? What's my interest again? What? It's my interest. I'm saying it. What's my fucking interest? Why do I give a fuck about doing this? Why do I need this? Why do I need a kid again? What's the purpose? What do I do with it? Except worry and torment myself over all the wrong decisions I made when your Frankenstein is finally introduced to the world. I have to be responsible, and I'm going to have all kinds of, there's just no way I can make all the right decisions, so there's going to be a whole lot of flaws in his behavior, and he's going to knock some shit over. The whole thing's just going to be a horrible embarrassment.
On each dice. And let's say they're 20-sided dice, just for fun. And so you think the odds are pretty low, no big deal. But if you get two, snake eyes, two skull and crossbones, a gun pops out of the table and shoots your wife. You still going to gamble?
Oh, there, we're done, right? I mean, frankly, what are we doing it for? What are you gambling for? For what purpose? What? Because you think you're going to create something that's not going to be just like all the other crap that's already out there? All the other dysfunctional, brutalized, hard-living crap that most of the humans endure. Most of the lives are not charmed, wonderful lives. Most of the lives are brutally hard work.
Yeah, well, see, when it's some non-thing, when it's a thing in the non-averse, and you're just going to pluck it out, you don't know it yet. You don't know its disposition, its welfare. You don't know its sensitivities. What if I found the thing that your wife fears the most?
Oh, that was a video to him. So this is like from 5 years ago.
And the worst possible kind of death. Now put that on the dice. You still going to play the game?
I mean, really, people like to disrespect my crew, but the fact is that
something else I'm just totally uncharmed by, and you're just like, man, it's just, we couldn't be, there's just, like I said, I have more in common with things that don't have a penis than this weirdo. But anyway.
I don't know you.
Philosophy is about problem solving. Sometimes the problem we need to solve is the attitude that lurks behind an argument.
Oh, whatever. So how to argue is one thing. The point of arguing, though, isn't to solve problems. It's to identify them most of the time, frankly. You have to identify the problem first and correctly identify it before you have any hope. So it's just really about finding out what the truth is. And the truth is we're fucking robots. It's just the truth. We're just manufactured by cities and towns and a particular pair of parents. And, what kind of street we lived on and who the neighbors were and all that kind of little bullshit is going to decide what kind of stupid robot we're going to be. And it's all quite arbitrary and nonsensical and all these little stupid events that really don't have anything to do with anything. So somebody gave you a wedgie on just the wrong day and it gave you an attitude for the rest of your fucking life. And that's the way it works. And why would anybody say, oh yeah, let's keep making those. Let's just make a bunch of, silly bots to go around stealing each other's shit. And that's all they really can do is just steal each other's work and steal each other's labor and steal each other's this and that's all this game ever is. So what the fuck? What idiot says that's a great idea? And I don't know why he's got all these little like balls of doom images in here. I mean, isn't that all that it is? It's just rolling silly dice. For what?
Not a specific factual claim and not a flaw in the explicitly stated argument.
So that just sounds like a bunch of crap you don't need to even bother with. Who cares why people are misparaphrasing the truth or misparaphrasing the truth? Who cares what their bias is? I mean, it doesn't really matter. If the logic sucks, it sucks. It doesn't, I suppose there's some point in figuring out, it's because they're a man and they can't understand, or it's, they're making some kind of gross proof of a bias. But clearly, people are, does it matter that people are raised in religious countries? Or is the important fact that they're not smart enough to figure out that being raised in a fucking religious culture should not influence their adult maturation? That as a robot they should be able to figure out that's a poor source of understanding. Mommy says so. Yeah, that's a really poor source.
The attitude that this YouTuber in Mendham is demonstrating for you here is an attitude that I hear from vegan gains again and again.
Who's this twat? What is he playing? I don't know.
again. And the attitude is that they, as people who would refuse to have a child ever, that they are doing something.
What's this Canadian soldier bullshit about? You know, Canadian soldiers participating, circa 1 million allegedly, allegedly. So you don't even know. Killed in action, 51,000. Let's see, perhaps approximately 1 in 22. So he's comparing how many Canadian soldiers died in the war based on how many participated, which was a pretty small number.
Bold and brave and defiant. Whereas, in fact, what they're doing is cowardly. And they're trying to justify...
Is there an argument here somewhere?
Normalize their own cowardice.
So again, it's cowardice to bring up the argument that only a psychotic, arrogant kook rolls dice, gambles with somebody else's money, okay, for the fun of it. You know, I mean, gambles with their welfare, more specifically. You have to be a sociopath. So how do you unravel that simple logic? You have to be a sociopath, drive too fast, do lots of things because you want to. You have some want reason. You don't have some kind of rational reason that explains why what you want means anything. Again, you want to have kids. Why? Why the fuck do you want that? Why don't you analyze that? And is that want, that desire, what the fuck does it have to do with you imposing this risk? So again, it's this, the risk is obvious, it's right there in front of you, and you're the one pretending it doesn't exist because you're an arrogant douche.
To the assertion that everyone shares this trait with them. Everyone is just as averse to these risks, these negative consequences.
Right, so of course that's what everybody would say. Yes, everyone's adverse. No, you wouldn't want ALS, so why are you pretending you would? You wouldn't want leprosy. You wouldn't want all the blights and fetters that have, so many humans have been succumbed to. You wouldn't want those. You wouldn't want the worst of the death, the worst kind of cancer and the worst way to kill you and the worst process possible. So why are you pretending that they're just assuming that life is unpleasant for some individuals. No, it's overtly unpleasant. They're in mental hospitals right now. Every day is a nightmare. They're experiencing it every fucking day. They're being tormented, maybe by their own mental configuration. And you're saying you wouldn't mind exchanging roles with them. It would be fine with you. You don't care. You don't care what state you exist in. You'll exist in any state, and any state is a wonderful state. I mean, it's just a preposterous statement. It's not true. I mean, I couldn't force you to live the average life, and you goddamn know it.
They are, or anyone who doesn't share their cowardice must be insane. In Mendham.
Well, clearly, again, the definition of insane, in my opinion, should rightly cover people who have no appreciation for the risk they impose on others. That's, to me, pretty fucking insane. If you'll sit there and say it's good enough for me, but it's not good enough for them. They should have it, I shouldn't. If you think somebody else's broken leg is less of a big deal than your broken leg, then you're an idiot.
Seems to think that it's absolutely absurd to take this risk.
It's more than absurd. It's evil. It's so fucking despicable for you to think you have the right. Where did you derive the right from? Oh, nature gave me the capacity. So what? Nature gave you the capacity to rape. Nature gave you the capacity to pull somebody's head off. Nature gives you lots of capacities. It doesn't mean you as an intelligence can sit there and make a rational argument explaining why you should exercise that right, or impose that power, or realize that ambition.
Sudden, violent death at a rate of 1 in 20. He thinks nobody would take that gamble if they knew what they were getting themselves into.
Well, frankly, if the odds are 1 in 10, let's say you're going to get killed in a war, I'd be pretty damn stressed about that and be wondering why the fuck I'm in this stupid fucking war, and I'd be pretty pissed off about the whole adventure. Yeah, who the fuck wants that crap?
In World War One, of Canadian soldiers who served, more than 50,000 died. Very roughly, your odds of being killed be 1 in 12. In World War II, strangely, the statistics are even more vague. I couldn't find out precisely how many people served in the military. Perhaps 1 in 22. Perhaps we could round it off further and say it's about the same as his image here.
About. So this is all about Canadians. It's about.
Of rolling a 20-sided dice, that your odds be 1 in 12. Now, this is Canada we're talking about in World War II. Your odds of dying in World War II, if you were born a citizen of Poland, are shockingly, staggeringly terrible. The fate of the Polish people as a whole, both Jewish and Gentile, during World War II, will give you nightmares. So it gets...
So this is just all blah, blah, blah talk. So what does this have to do with something? That it's all okay because the war's over and I wasn't one of those suckers, so it's okay? What's your fucking point? That this carnage isn't reason enough just to say fuck doing this again? You think there's not going to be a World War III?
It's much, much worse than these statistics. And some people were cowards. Some people were cowards. And some people found ways to struggle and fight that were not nearly so easy.
Yeah, right. Lots of soldiers raped women and did lots of stuff. They raped and pillaged along their way and blah, 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 blah. And all of these crimes are somehow okay. It's okay. This is all part of the wonderful price we pay because they're all dead and they can't complain. Isn't that all you're really saying? I mean, all the dead people, they can't come back and vote for the next war, can they? You know, they don't have any vote. It's only the survivors, the douchebags that figured out how not to get the plague, who get to decide whether we're going to do it the next time. Oh, let's do it again. Yeah, well, the people who won get to decide, not the people who lost. I think if the losers were included in, you know, we gave them a vote, I don't think they'd vote for your bold ambition. I think they would vote for, why bother doing this horse shit if this is the price that's going to have to be paid? You know, if I'm going to have to, you know, spend 6 months dying of my war wounds, fuck you. You know, when I'm 18, I haven't even had a life.
As joining a conventional army that would at least provide you with meals and a place to
stay. So this is a response video. So he's posted this piece of steaming shit as a fucking goddamn... So somehow this is a counter argument, this boring, inane drivel. Doesn't even get to a point at all. Maybe never.
You know, some people had to fight in much more terrible circumstances. If your position is, there is no risk worth taking, ever.
No, my position is things are way too expensive. So again, you just said no risk worth taking. Oh, the risk of, you know, a hangnail, yeah, it might be worth taking for world peace forever. Yeah. Okay, that's not the point. The point is you're paying a price for something. I'm arguing that something isn't worth anything. They're just robots, for fuck's sake. Okay, and they're built to be unsatisfied. That is, the robot is sort of built that the more stuff you give it, the more stuff it needs. I mean, we see it all over the world. People don't get, like, they don't win $1 million and then my problems are solved. No, they try to win 2 and 5 and 10 and 15, and you know, and they ruin themselves. We see it all over the place all the time. We're not made to be satisfied. We're always looking, okay, for flaws and imperfections, and so our list, you know, our Christmas list just goes on forever and ever and ever. You can never satiate us in a sense. And we see it, like I said, all the time. People aren't satisfied if they have good health. They aren't satisfied if they have a moderately attractive wife. They're never satisfied, asshole. And so why would you build such a machine? And then certainly the animals in nature, the attrition rate is obscene. An obscene attrition rate. You're killing so many, and you're killing them, just, horribly, brutally, and no morphine, no anything, So what are you pretending? What are you accomplishing for all this carnage? To make robots? You're obsessed. You need to have robots in the universe, but you don't need Martian robots. You never cried any tears for the absence of Martian robots, or Uranian, whatever, Satonian. You've shed no tears because all these other versions of robot don't exist. The double-billed platypus. Oh, we don't have any double-billed platypuses. Oh, what a disappointment. The whole universe has failed. Your standards are illogical and irrational. So for no gain, you're imposing all of this pain.
Of 1 in 20, that you wouldn't roll the 20-sided dice and risk your own life, you are a coward.
Oh, amazing. So, whatever, you're going to call somebody a coward for rationally might say, this ain't my fight, for fucker. Okay, I don't give a shit about either one of these sides, frankly. I don't want either side to win. So fuck you, in that attitude. I'd say, yes, World War II was sort of, they didn't really know the whole context of the war, So, it's almost, again, it is a little bit like, well, if you were just to argue who should run France, the French or the Germans, who cares? I wouldn't give a shit.
And I understand that you want to justify that cowardice by generalizing that cowardice, by saying that all of humanity shares this trait with you, but you're wrong.
Well, whatever. I don't know what you're talking about. All humanity shares what trait? I'm saying it's unintelligent to impose harm. It's just a stupid thing to do without any gain. So unless you can draw a good picture of what you're solving, you don't make it. Okay, you don't make a mess to fix nothing. If you're going to make a mess, it has to be because you're going to stop a bigger mess. And so I would argue that life fixes nothing that's broken in the universe. It doesn't undo some pain or harm. It doesn't have any way to generate anything truly good. There's just no way to do it. And that the mechanism you're saying is a good fix for the not broken thing in the universe, I'm explaining is insanely expensive. So fucking expensive that I couldn't justify it. So you're saying it takes courage to, again, I could use the going to the amusement park analogy. You're going to the amusement park, and to get there, you're going to have to torture one kid. So 1 out of the 10 kids, you're going to torture him. All right, you're going to put him in the trunk and drag him behind the car, and he's going to be horribly sick and horribly unpleasant. It's going to be an awful, awful thing. And you'd still go. If that was the price, you'd say, yeah, it's still a trip worth taking. I don't care. Fuck that guy. His name's Jim. I don't like Jims. What would be your rationale to accept this as a thing you're going to do? You're actually the guy who's going to tie the rope to his leg. And you're going to get in the driver's seat and you're going to feel okay. Yeah, I'm doing a good thing because I'm making 9 assholes happy. And they're not going to be happy in any kind of permanent way. They're going to be happy for a moment. They'll eat too much cotton candy and feel sick too. So, you're not going to win. You're not going to do anything but torture things, you fucking lunatic.
Having a child takes guts. It
takes ignorance, stupidity. It takes you have to be ignorant or you have to be sadistic. Those are the only 2 choices. Frankly, there's no, look, if you're not colossally ignorant, okay, then you're also ignorant of the fact that you're going to have to make all of these complex decisions for your child's welfare and maturation. That its entire maturation will be dependent on all these decisions you make. Little tiny decisions are going to have a huge impact on your child's psychology. Now, are you saying that that's too complex an idea and you don't understand it, or are you saying you don't believe it? Well, what's your notion of how this job you're going to do is something you have the competence to do in the first place at all? And so you're going to courageously do something you're not competent to do, which is control the experiment. You have no real control.
Trial involves elements of risk. You have to be bold enough to endure
You have to be cruel enough. That's all this is. You're just saying, well, you have to be courageous to go into the slaughterhouse and, slit the pig's throat and let him bleed out. No, you have to be an asshole.
unspeakable suffering. Not everyone should join the army. Not everyone should become a combatant. Not everyone.
Well, you just said they should, or they're weak and disrespectable and all this bullshit, because they don't seem to have the same motivation to be cruel. I don't want to go shoot other people for dumb reasons.
Should become a parent. Not everyone has what it takes. And I would never attempt to convince Vegan Gaines that he should become a parent. He would doubtless be a terrible parent. He is doubtless correct.
Oh, so this is not about being a parent then in any kind of rational way. You're not even having the conversation in the right way. This has nothing to do with what you desire to do. It's whether you have the ethical reasoning to defend what you're doing. Okay? I don't care whether you have some horny to do it. All right? I mean, the fact is there's people who are pedophiles. They have a horny they're horny for kids. And I empathize. But I can't sit there and say it's okay for you to exercise your desire. Well, you have a horny somehow. Somehow there's something you find interesting in making babies and children and maturating them, being responsible for them, and all of this crap. And I'd say it's more just about some kind of weird ego thing where you think it's going to be really cool that your kid's going to lose all his hair at 30 years old. Because your genetics suck anyway. But I mean, whatever it is you think, that this notion that you're going to improve the world with your prodigy or something, some kind of weird, bizarre, kind of silly notion in your fucking head. I mean, I'd almost argue that most men have kids because they're thinking about molesting them, frankly. I don't see what other purpose there is to it. Why any man would have any ambition to have children. It's kind of... Yeah, sorry, I can only think of really perverse reasons why I would do it. Really perverse. So what the fuck? And you're sitting there saying that you're demonstrating courage by imposing risk. And again, it just doesn't make any sense. Why? What's courageous about dragging something into existence and then not being able to control what happens to it? There's nothing courageous. That's fucking psychotic. If you can't do the job right, you don't do it at all. Don't you understand that simple logic?
Assessment that he should never have children. But isn't it fundamentally humble, humiliating to stop and reflect that this is something I can't do? This is something you personally can't do. This is something you are lacking, but that others should do, must do, that even perhaps is a little bit heroic.
What the heroic he's calling it. So just so bizarre. I mean, if you told me the average person having kids was fully aware of what they were doing, in the sense they had contemplated all the risk, and they had contemplated the fact that they're not going to be able to control the experiment, and their kid is not going to turn out to be what they think they're going to get, that their ambitions are totally unrealistic. They've never bounced a basketball, yet they think they're going to be professional basketball players. I mean, they have no qualifications for the job, no expertise, no real understanding of all of the nuance of parenting or any of that kind of thing. So if you're telling me that the people who are having kids are fully aware of all these risks and fully aware of the high responsibility they have and their obligation to the future, the mess that their kid can make and all of that stuff, and then you're saying they have the courage, I might be able to buy some of that. But we know that's not what people are doing. They're not being courageous. They're being selfish, you fuck. So, it's so dishonest to describe the courage of the baby makers in a context that has nothing to do with who we know has kids. The ones who don't have kids are the ones who understand what I just said. All the stuff about the huge obligations, the huge responsibility. That it's all on you, and you're going to have to sacrifice all of your fun time because you have a real important project you've involved yourself in. So there's no more free time for your own little fun things. You don't get to go on your own vacations, your own this, and your own that. You have this huge responsibility. We know the people who are recognizing that are the ones who don't have kids, And the ones who don't recognize it are the ones who are having kids. So again, if you're going to use your little statistics as an example, I mean, what's the average number of parents who have considered the weight of their responsibility, the weight of all the horrible things that can happen, the autism, the retardations, all the all the birth defects, the early adolescent cancers, all the other stuff the kid has to survive, the gauntlet of even surviving the social system and the terrible economic system where we've already enslaved those children because we've spent all their money, blah, 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 blah. What percentage out of 50,000 child producers, what's the number do you think it is that have actually considered all of these fucking risks and then courageously walked into their responsibility? Fuck you. I mean, it's one in 40,000?
When others do it, that's something you might be able to admire in others. No. What people like Amanda must do is justify their own ego by vilifying more than 90%.
So, more nonsense. I vilify my own motivations, my own psychology, my own, the fact that I have been habitized, to certain gappable preferences and likes and dislikes and all of that stuff. So that's just a pile of horse shit, that I have any love for my own ambitions and that this is some sort of battle over that. It's a battle over a simple truth. I have existed as somebody who has paid a price for existence. I didn't have an easy life. And so I am empathetic to the circumstance. And I am knowledgeable of the fact that all of this is created by a bunch of lies. My parents were completely delusional and full of shit. They admitted it eventually, that they didn't think about it. And that's the simple truth. This is something only people who don't think about it do. This isn't something somebody who thinks about it does. Because they're, like I said, most people are basically capable of understanding. If I wouldn't do it to myself, why would I'd have to be a complete asshole to force somebody else to do it. And that there's lots of outcomes that are going to be a lot worse than your worst nightmare. And why the hell would I be responsible for that? For what motivation, what terrible need do I need to satisfy that I would sit there and risk such a colossal failure? Most people will not dangle knives over a kid. They just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't push a kid onto a tightrope.
Of the human race by saying that everyone else is crazy. Everyone else is crazy.
Blah, blah, blah. No, you're stupid and sadistic. I mean, clearly you're sadistic. Your lack of capacity to understand or to empathize with the victims you're creating is so obvious and so overt. You're obviously sociopathically disconnected. You don't see the victims as real people. You don't see them as one of you. You see them as some sort of them that you can discount because you're such a winner. I mean, it's like the Olympic champion not being able to appreciate. Therefore, the grace of a little bit of good luck, I could be one of those losers.
Because they don't share this fundamental cowardice. There's a philosophically significant contrast between...
Oh, this is the same boy. You have not aged well, buddy. Even his voice was different. So that was his argument. I thought he was playing somebody else's argument. It was so fucking stupid. So you've gotten fat also, apparently.
This problem I've been describing, and what goes on in the minds of newly converted atheists, people who've just made the transition from American Christianity to American atheism in the 21st century.
Oh, more nonsense again, American atheism. So you're not an atheist either, Looney?
Just pause to disclose, I am myself an atheist, and I am not one of these atheists who has the attitude of whatever makes you happy. Like, you do you. I'm not an atheist who's in favor of spiritualism or spirituality or continuing to celebrate Christmas.
But you are in favor of nihilism, some sort of idiotic notion that we can't all understand what has value in the world. That if I made a intelligent computer, something that could just evolve intelligence, and I gave it the capacity to feel so it knows what a bad feeling is, it wouldn't understand that, hey, we ought to just prevent all that bad stuff. I can live without the good, but yeah, get rid of that bad. That's really annoying.
just so that you can sing songs with your extended family. I am much more of an extreme and uncompromising atheist, but nevertheless,
Whatever that even means, extreme and uncompromising. It just, look, all you're saying is the fables don't work. But I'd say it's a fable for you to think the world is what you feel. That, how life affects you is the only thing that matters. That's not the truth. The truth is that every single thing you do in the world will affect other people and the welfare of other people and the welfare of their pets and the welfare of the animals and the welfare of all kinds of things are going to be affected by how you interact in the world. And here your interaction is this nihilist, selfish horseshit that there's some fucking purpose in making babies. And there is no purpose except to satisfy some weird perverse desire you have. So what the fuck? The argument's sort of over. You don't have any rational ambition.
I'm not interested in supporting an atheist movement that's built on a lie any more than I'm interested in supporting a religion that's built on a lie. I'm quite willing and equal.
What the fuck does this have to do with anything? I mean, atheism is just a simple statement. I don't believe in fables. Okay, so yeah, I'm anti-fables. Period. So tell me the truth, okay, but you're going to just make up a story? Fuck that.
To examine the defects and disadvantages of atheism and the attitudes atheism brings into our lives, in the same way that I'm willing to examine the defects of religion and the attitudes and assumptions religions bring into our lives. Right? And there is a huge phenomenon in the 21st century. Searching now on YouTube, I couldn't find a single video examining it or discussing it. There probably are videos, and they're probably very censored and hard to find within YouTube.
Oh, what the fuck? They're censored. What is... So you really are insane, okay? I mean, I thought you were just unreasonable, but no, you're really crazy. What the fuck are you talking about?
Topic for the video. I couldn't find a single video just now.
It just is disappointing and depressing. You just look at these numbers. There's 1,200 people that can watch this guy every week or every 2 days or whenever he makes videos. I mean, just like, oh, fuck. Yuck. Yuck.
Talking about the psychological pattern of people converting from Christianity to atheism and then assuming
The psychological pattern. Again, it's just... What is there of this whole conversion thing and all the rest of it? I mean, it's a simple conclusion. Somebody tells you this wacky little story about a poofer in the clouds, that created the universe or something that existed without any, having to be poofed, and and then you have a story like evolution, and you say, well, which one's true? Little furry robots are made by chemistry becoming more and more complex and it ending up being in a getting caught in a spiral of competition, or this poofy on purpose with all of these silly parts and silly ambitions and silly purposes. Obviously religion loses. A reasonable person is not, what the hell, this isn't this isn't about psychology. It's about adding 2 + 2, for fuck's sake. The religious stories are overtly flawed as evidence.
and then imagining that the most heroic thing they can do is live a life of sensual indulgence, live a life devoted to sleeping around or seducing other men's wives or engaging in whatever sexual acts were forbidden
So now he's obsessed with sex.
before, where suddenly they regard it as courageous, heroic, and manly, shall we say, to do all of the things their grandparents would have forbidden them to do before, precisely because their grandparents forbid.
I mean, what's the difference? I mean, having kids, there's nothing admirable about it. It's a selfish act. You're not doing it. You can't explain to me what your bold ambition is. And if you claim you have some ambition to save the world with my prodigy, I'm going to do such great things with them. They're going to be such super duper robots. You're going to have to explain where you have any idea whatsoever, any reason to believe that you're able to create those kind of robots, that you know what to do to make a good robot, and that you can even make it physically, that you can make something physically healthy. You don't even have a guarantee of that.
They're incapable of recognizing that there is a kind of heroism, there is a kind of virtue, there is a kind of self-discipline in being a good person in the absence of that religious tradition. their grandparents have, in the absence of the delusions their grandparents subscribe to.
So now he's saying it's admirable to figure out not to stick nails in somebody's eye. Well, no, it's really not. Okay, you don't get any credit for that. That's too simple, too easy. So you can certainly get negative credit, but you can't get any positive credit. I mean, not stepping in somebody else's face. No, you don't get a star for that. Okay.
Nevertheless, they face the same challenge.
You get a star for actually stopping somebody from stepping on somebody else's face. You get a star for punching the bully, okay? Not for watching one.
Of what it means to be a good person, especially in relation to controlling one's sexual desires or whatever other miscellaneous desires before they subordinated to...
Right, and the miscellaneous desires would be procreating. What the fuck is that but a desire? It's not something you can explain in any kind of rational form. What the fuck? Why do you think it's necessary? There's no reasoning. You want to do it for some dopey reason. It doesn't have anything to do with the world needs it.
These ridiculous religious delusions. Right? In the same way, it seems to be very easy for people to convince themselves that there is something heroic about antinatalism, that there is something heroic about refusing to take on the responsibility.
So again, this is more nonsense. There's nobody making any such videos, so that's just on its face idiotic. The whole point is about the crime of rape, not the how great non-rapists are. Nobody's making videos about how great the non-rapists are. No, they're making videos about how bad the rapists are. Fuckhead. So you're not even close.
Abilities of a parent, just because their religious tradition, just because their parents and grandparents conditioned them to believe that having a child, that raising a child, that making those sacrifices, that taking on those responsibilities.
Oh, again, all this talk about taking on responsibilities when we know that 90% of kids aren't born in that environment. That it's a reckless act by immature assholes. Period. So keep lying, overtly lying, about where kids get created.
Was something they were obliged to do. Okay? In rejecting religious belief, we reject the obligation as irrational. And I would agree that you have no obligation to any God to be, shall we say...
Oh, gee, thanks for informing me that I had no idea. Yeah, it never even entered my mind to ask what God's opinion was when I thought about having kids when I was a kid, and I thought about, what, I have to have kids? I had no way to make anything rational out of that. I couldn't figure out why the fuck I would do it. Why exactly would I do that? What good is it? How does it enhance my life? That's how I looked at it. And I couldn't see how I was an enhancement. And I couldn't see how me having a kid would be an enhancement to my existence. How it makes my Tonka truck move better. How I can move more dirt with it. How I can, nothing. I couldn't make any sense out of it.
Sexually, a good person. To be self-disciplined in dealing with your desires and the consequences of acting on those desires.
So again, you're the one who's showing no discipline. You're saying your desires are some sort of special, wonderful thing when I can point out how, no, your desire to have a kid is based on some sort of ego crap, if anything else. It has no reasoning behind it at all. It's just a silly, idiotic, perverse kind of, what do you call that? You're just, it's so crude and visceral, an emotional problem you have. Where somehow you need to do it over. You didn't get it right, so you have to do it again.
You have no obligation to any God. You have an obligation to yourself. You have an obligation to others. You have no obligation to any God, and you have no obligation to your parents or...
Oh, jeez. What the fuck is this shit in here for? Who the hell needs to... This is just an inane argument. Even when people believe in God, they don't do anything that God requires. They don't show any discipline. So the hypocrisy of the religious is so overt. I mean, why are you even talking about this horse shit?
Parents, your cultural traditions that may be outside of religion, strictly defined, you have no obligation to your ancestors stretching back thousands of years or any of those values in your family. You have no obligation to anyone to have a child. And yet you should still be able to recognize the type of self-discipline, the type of self-sacrifice, and yes, even the type of heroism. That is
right. So I mean, like I said, you can go through all the crack whore kind of mentality that is producing most children on Earth is just a fact. So this is just such a pile of shit. that the admirable people are having babies. No, they're not. The admirable people know it's none of their business.
Fire that is involved in making the commitment to have and raise children. When I look at people like Vegan Gaines, when I look at people like Amendum, and when I look at people who go off the deep end after converting from Christianity to atheism and suddenly have to indulge in sex with prostitutes, use of recreational drugs, in all the things that were forbidden to them before.
Whatever. Yes, just because God said it was, he said some things that were stupid, like don't masturbate, that somehow he was wrong about everything. No, obviously religion was right about some things. But your people are the example. I mean, I could point to people like you and I could say, oh yeah, you're playing this genital mutilation thing because it's associated with religion, that somehow circumcision was some irrational thing, done for no good reason. When clearly it was done for a good reason by people who were kind of fanatic about cleanliness and all that kind of stuff. So maybe you just think they're too neat freaky. But the fact is they was doing it for a good reason. It wasn't because God invented the idea. It's just kind of silly. Obviously, God didn't suggest it to the humans.
What I see is a kind of cowardice. What I see, of course, is a reckless lack of self-discipline. That they are.
Oh, whatever. You're not. It's a reckless lack of discipline to sit there and watch torture, and to say no more. You're the one just saying, bring it on, Holocaust, Smolocaust. You're the one who's just an insensitive, cruel blob of shit. You think you can keep justifying torturing things over and over and over again for these inanely frivolous ambitions of yours.
Justifying
You're just a dumb animal.
in their own minds as if it were courage, because for them it's an act of rebellion.
And so again, it has nothing to do with courage. So again, nobody's pointing out how it's courageous to be an anti-natalist. At least I've never made such a video. Where did I ever make such a video? Even make any kind of statement like that? I don't see any. Obviously, I didn't have any courage to overcome my non-desire to have kids. But I'm just explaining to you the non-desire was rational. It wasn't, some kind of, from nowhere. It was from a simple logical process that obviously, you can make your argument that somehow you have some sort of, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, I plant flowers, and I do it not because I think flowers are all that special, I just do it because it's a project, blah, 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 blah. So the reasoning has, there's no, but if somebody told me tomorrow that planting flowers, here's the proof, it causes all kinds of torture, then I'm not planting flowers anymore. No big deal.
Against these absent grandparents, these absent ancestors, yes, even these absent gods.
So that didn't make any sense at all, and especially that closing crap music doesn't make any sense. I don't know what planet people are living on, but it's not mine. So we might as well have Martians, because frankly the function of this guy's brain is as alien to me as it gets. I mean, there's just no, we don't add the numbers the same, with just nothing, and all this pointing to this horse shit. Whatever this is, I don't want any of these things either. Just like I don't want a kid, I have no use for one. I don't have a use for A or R or any of this, whatever it is. Don't need one. Don't want one. But whatever. So anyway, that was a nice waste of probably my time, but whatever. Wasn't much of an argument to make. We're courageously imposing harm. No. Yeah, it's just too stupid. First, do no harm. That's a simple little ethical statement. First, is there anything to really gain? Can you turn the gain into something other than just some perverse notion that you have in your head that there needs to be flowers, there needs to be flowers, there needs to be flowers? Can you really prove there needs to be flowers? So first prove that there needs to be human beings, and then prove to me that you need them in spite of all the pain caused to the natural environment or the biosphere that pays for you having air to breathe out of their death and destruction. Well, anyway, I mean, you can go through the list. It just no, there's just no rational reason to keep perpetuating all of this nonsense. This is a bad soap opera, and it needs to be canceled. It's a really bad soap opera, I should say. It's really, really, really bad. Alright. Till the next time. And such. Save. Yeah, that's the safe bet. Yeah, the icons just doesn't work, so I can't tell when it's recording or when it's paused. It's really as annoying as fuck. I have to fix that. Somehow.